this is going to sound a bit hilarious. Well, I think it's funny. But one of my biggest well-being transformations was going from crying in a finance meeting to not crying in finance meetings. And it wasn't because I wasn't going to finance and I didn't have a grasp on, the grants and the funds that I used to manage and oversee at my previous role. It was because I was so overwhelmed with vicarious trauma that I was in a constant active state of grief. And I say this was one of my biggest well-being transformations because along the road, there have been some pivotal points where I was like, okay, something needs to change. And this was one of those points. And not that, crying in a finance meeting is bad. Not that I like to label things good or bad, but it just wasn't required at that moment. It just wasn't, there wasn't anything to sort of, elicit much emotion at all, let alone tears in front of funders. Pretty sure there were some potential funders there, maybe. So here's the thing. That led me on like a 6 months aggressive, intensive research deep dive into well-being and trying to figure out what was that one well-being practice that would fix me so that I would stop actively living in vicarious trauma. Unsurprisingly, that research journey ended with me realizing that there wasn't one quick miracle fix. But what it did guide me through was many, many, many ways that I can tend to my spirit, my mind, my body, and my emotions. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because if you are in the healthcare and the helping profession, you don't have time to do a 6-month intensive deep dive research into how best to tend to support your well-being. That is why I'm here. I've done that work to help offer you evidence-based, holistic, lived experience, to offer you those ideas and suggestions in a manageable way in a weekly, short video that allows you to try things out and be like, is this for me? Is this supportive? It might not be, and then you can let it go. I want you to feel uplifted in your work, to feel fulfilled, joy, excited about going to work every day. And that doesn't mean that feelings of grief and outrage and despair aren't also present and aren't also part of the human experience, because they completely are. And we want to embrace all those emotions. But the goal is not to be fully overwhelmed by them. And that was what I was experiencing with vicarious trauma. I was feeling the grief of community members who had passed away in communities or neighboring communities that I worked with. And again, we want to have the compassion and empathy to be able to feel grief and to offer our sympathy and support. But I was consumed by it. It was impacting my day to day, and I was certainly not doing it from a regulated space. So the practice I want to offer you today is something that my counselor at the time offered me as I was navigating this overwhelm. And it's called the sympathy card. And it might seem really simple and it might seem silly, and maybe it's not for you, and that's okay. But it was really transformational for me. And it was when I noticed those feelings of grief and sorrow pop up, specifically in relation, for me at the time, to deaths of youths and young people. I imagined in my mind, or I wrote it out, my sympathy to the community members, the family members, the other youth who were affected. And I left it in the confines of the sympathy card. And so I acknowledged my feelings. I acknowledged my love for the community. I acknowledged the terrible thing that had happened, but it was safely held in the bounds of the sympathy card. And so I wanted to share this practice because, again, it was simple, but it came at a time where I really needed to understand how to process emotions, to feel them and let them go. And this was one of the really small practices that helped me. And it's these sorts of practices that I share in my Nourish membership and in my Flourish community of practice. So if you're looking for a monthly membership to support your well-being and also tend to a spiritual practice, please check out Nourish. If you're a healthcare or helping professional and you're looking to reduce burnout, you're looking to love your life and your work again, then please check out Flourish. That might be for you.